Okay, take two. The first take was so funny and it disappeared into thin air. Just disappeared. I'm so disappointed. But let's see if I can put funny back on for part two. All right. Or take two, I should say. Carbon properties. Oh, yeah. This is getting good. Now, carbon is so cool. Just keep that in mind. It is so cool. Now, when we talked about organic, we were saying not grocery store organic. We're talking about organic, like at the scientific organic. And what did that mean? It contains carbon. Now, the exceptions you need to know to that are methane gas, CH4, carbon dioxide, CO2, and carbon monoxide, CO. So those are the exceptions. Those are considered inorganic molecules, but everything else, if it contains carbon, it is organic. So organic chemistry is a branch of science that deals with the element carbon and its properties. So you need to tell your parents that. Tell them that you are studying organic chemistry and they will think you are the coolest thing on the planet. I already do. I'm sure they already do, but then it will be confirmed. Let's move on. All right. So the mass number of carbon, this is set up a little different than the periodic table from the last video, or the video before that, or the one before that. I can't remember. They're all rolling into one. But you can see carbon has an atomic number of 6, which means, oh yeah, that's good. You did good. The 6 protons. The mass number is right here, the 12.01. The mass number is the protons plus the neutrons. That's right. I heard you say it. I just thought I'd echo it. Oh boy, did I mention I have really good hearing? Yeah. What'd you say? Oh, okay, whatever. All right, so with carbon, it's usually associated with all living organisms. Now, about 30% of its dry weight is called biomass, which would make sense. Bio is life, mass is mass. So if about 30% is carbon, and we said before that 70% of us is water, so we're pretty much water and mainly carbon, which is true. That's pretty much us. All right, so here we have the carbon cycle. So carbon, CO2 is basically the basis, the framework here, because we have CO2 in the atmosphere, and then plants will respire and give off, take in carbon dioxide in order to photosynthesize, and then that carbon, the primary consumers will eat it, the secondary consumers will eat the primary consumers and get the carbon, then they all die, goes and decomposes, and then the fish and the other benthic organisms here, all of these, and the trees and the animals, all go through cellular respiration and return, okay, whatever, return carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. And of course, burning these fossil fuels does as well. And then it just continues in the cycle of life. All right, so maybe not. That's a whole different song with a whole different theme, but it sounded good. Whatever. All right, so remember we said carbon has 6 protons, which means it has how many electrons in a neutral atom? I told you I could hear you. 6. 2 in that first shell, 4 in that valence shell. In that outer shell there's 4. Well, how many does it want in order to be happy? Yep, that's right. I heard that too. That would be 8. So it has 4 unpaired electrons. So it can do really cool things. So you can see here, it can bond to hydrogens, and then what kind of bonding is that? Oh, you guys are just blowing me away. You're absolutely right. It is covalent bonding. They are sharing these electrons. There's no donating or accepting with these. This is all sharing. Sharing is caring. All right, moving on. Okay, so let's look at some different things that can happen with the hydrocarbons. Oh, yeah, because we have hydrogens and carbons, thus the name hydrocarbon. This is so cool. All right, so It can structurally, like here is methane. So here's the molecular formula, but here's the structural formula. And then here's methane. So we add another carbon and some more hydrogens here. Now we have carbon bonded with another carbon, where here carbon is bonded with hydrogen. And then we can have ethylene, which still has two carbons, but now it's double bonded. Oh yeah. Isn't that cute? That's like really cute. I like the double bond stuff. That's really, really cool. Okay, whatever. Okay, what is this? What is this? All of you should think immediately. That is a triglyceride. Here's our glycerol and our 3 fatty acid chains. So this is a lipid. Yep. And do we have saturated or unsaturated fats here? That is the question. I'm going to sit here for a moment while you try to decide. Oh, I didn't even have to. You already got it. Saturated it is, because every one of these carbons has a hydrogen off of it. So these are saturated. Woo! Okay, now moving on. So molecules, mostly hydrocarbons, contain mostly carbon and hydrogen. Most of them are energy sources, so fossil fuels, oils, fats. The more hydrogen atoms in a molecule, the more energy there is in that molecule. Clearly, my Emma wakes up every morning and eats her hydrogen because she got a lot of energy. Okay, so probably not. But that is true. The more hydrogen, the more energy. I think hydrogen, think energy. So they are very important in the cell membrane. I told you that cell membrane was coming back to us. Here's that hydrophobic tail, the lipids. There's the lipid right there. And so hydrophobic, it's water fearing. They do not like the water. Stay out of the water. Get away from the water. I can't swim. All right, whatever. And then here's our phosphate head, which loves the water. Hey, let's go. Whatever. All right. Here's a picture of our cell membrane. You should be able to close your eyes and point to the structures in here at this point. Come on now. You got this. All right, moving on. All right, now we want to look at functional groups. All right. They serve a function. That's why they're called functional groups. So, I mean, clearly we may not be as familiar with estradiol. I don't even know how to pronounce that. That just, But we are all familiar with testosterone, okay? I'm just thinking this is like estrogen, testosterone. If I were, whatever. All right, so let's look at these functional groups. You have to memorize these. You got to know them. The first one, hydroxyl. Not tough. Hydrogen, oxygen, thus the name hydroxyl. So this is a hydroxide ion here, and when it's attached like this, it's called a hydroxyl. This is alcohol. It's also called an alcohol, and this is what's present in alcoholic beverages, none of which any of you would know anything about because you're way too young. Don't even think it. Moving on to carbonyls. Now, carbonyl group has a carbon double bonded with oxygen. All right, now an easy way to remember the two examples. You can have a ketone and you can have an aldehyde. All right, so an aldehyde, think A is at one end of the alphabet, okay? And with an aldehyde, the carbonyl group is at the end, where ketone, K, is in the middle of the alphabet, and this carbonyl group is in the middle. So the ketone, the carbonyl's in the middle, the aldehyde, the carbonyl is at the end. Pretty good, huh? You got that now, no doubt. All right, carboxyl. So now we have a carbonyl here, but we also have an alcohol. So this is a carboxyl group, carbon, and then your carbonyl, and then your oxygen. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is a carboxyl acetic acid, which gives vinegar its sour taste because it has the carboxyl group on there. All right. An amine, we're a little familiar with that since we did the amino acids. Amine has a nitrogen in it, and it has the hydrogens coming off. So it has a carboxyl group. So in this, this is the amino acid because it has the carboxyl group, the carboxylic acid group here, and the amine. All right, sulfhydryl. This one, pretty self-explanatory, contains a sulfur and a hydrogen. So it has a sulfur on here. This right here helps to stabilize proteins. It also can make these disulfide bridges that form these pockets in protein formation. When we look at proteins, we'll talk more about these, but sulfhydryl groups. Then we have phosphate groups. Now the phosphate, for obvious reasons, contains phosphorus. They named that right, huh? So the phosphate group contains phosphorus. It also has these oxygens around it, with one of them being double bonded. Okay, so these are going to be real important when we're talking about ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So, okay, that's all we have tonight, folks. That's the end of our show. Thanks for joining in. Have a great night.